The conference room smelled like stale coffee and recycled air. I stood at the front with my laptop open, palms sweating, about to present the idea I had spent 6 months developing. A branding platform for small businesses. Simple, affordable, human. Harold Drake, my manager, sat in the back with his arms crossed, that smirk already forming before I even started talking. I clicked to my first slide and began. 3 minutes in, he laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A full, loud laugh that made everyone turn around. Nora, he said, leaning back in his chair like he owned the oxygen in the room, stick to spreadsheets. Leave the bold ideas to real entrepreneurs. The room went silent. Someone coughed. Tessa Monroe looked down at her notebook. My face burned hot, but I kept standing there, frozen, holding the clicker like it could save me. It couldn't. Harold stood up and walked out, still chuckling. The meeting ended 2 minutes later. And me? I just packed up my laptop and walked back to my desk like nothing happened. But something did happen. Something shifted. The rest of that day, Harold kept making little comments. In the hallway, he called me the dreamer. At lunch, he told someone loud enough for me to hear that some people just don't have business instincts. By 3 o'clock, I wanted to scream. By 5, I just wanted to disappear. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes after work, hands gripping the steering wheel, and cried. Not because he hurt my feelings. Because he humiliated me in front of people I respected. Because he made me feel small in a room where I had worked so hard to be seen. But here's the thing. I didn't quit. I didn't storm back into his office. I didn't send a dramatic resignation email. I just sat there in that car, wiped my face, and made a decision. If he thought my idea was worthless, I would prove him wrong. Not by arguing. By building it anyway. The next morning, I walked into work like nothing had changed. But everything had. I started small. Every night after work, I would sit in my apartment with a notebook and write down everything I knew. Client feedback I had heard in meetings. Rejection emails from agencies that small business owners showed me. Market gaps nobody was talking about. I researched platforms, studied pricing models, looked at competitors who were charging too much and delivering too little. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. During the day, I did my job perfectly. Filed reports. Organized data. Smiled politely when Harold walked by. But at night, I was building something else. A foundation. Brick by brick. I started reaching out to small business owners I knew from past projects, asking them questions. What did they need? What frustrated them? What would make their lives easier? And every single one of them said the same thing. Big agencies don't listen. They talk at us, not with us. That's when I knew. This idea wasn't just good. It was necessary. Tessa Monroe was the kind of coworker everyone liked. Friendly, supportive, always offering to grab coffee. So when she asked me about my platform idea a few weeks after the meeting, I thought she genuinely cared. I loved your concept, she said, smiling over her latte. Harold was way too harsh. You should keep working on it. I told her a little. Not everything. Just enough. She nodded along, asked smart questions, took notes. I thought I had an ally. 2 weeks later, I noticed something strange. A team project we were working on suddenly included language I had used in my presentation. Phrases I had written. Concepts I had designed. When I brought it up in a meeting, Harold cut me off. These are standard industry practices, Nora. No one owns an idea. Tessa said nothing. Just looked at her laptop. That night, I realized what had happened. She hadn't been supporting me. She had been gathering information. For him. I didn't confront her. I just stopped talking. And started watching. Owen Hale worked in IT. Quiet guy, kept to himself, always wore the same black hoodie. We had never really talked beyond polite nods in the hallway. But one afternoon, he appeared at my desk with his laptop, pretending to check something on my computer. Your shared folder, he said quietly, barely moving his lips. Someone accessed it last week. Multiple times. Late at night. My stomach dropped. Who? He glanced toward Harold's office. Didn't say a name. Didn't need to. Start backing up everything, Owen said, closing his laptop. Outside this building. Personal drive. Cloud storage. Somewhere they can't touch. Then he walked away like the conversation never happened. That night, I downloaded every file, every draft, every email chain, every version of my presentation. I saved it all to 3 different places. External hard drive, personal cloud, email to myself. If they wanted to steal my work, they would have to get past timestamps, metadata, and legal proof that I created it first. I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was preparing for war. The meetings started happening without me. I would walk by the conference room and see Harold, Tessa, and 2 senior managers inside with the door closed. When I asked what they were working on, Harold just smiled. Nothing you need to worry about, Nora. Just high-level strategy. But I knew. I saw the signs. New project folders I didn't have access to. Emails that stopped including me. Conversations that went quiet when I walked into the break room. Then one morning, I saw it. A memo announcing a new initiative. A branding platform for emerging businesses. Affordable, scalable, human-centered. My exact words. My exact structure. They had taken my idea, repackaged it, and were preparing to launch it as their own. And the person listed as lead strategist? Tessa Monroe. I sat at my desk, staring at that memo, feeling my chest tighten. But I didn't cry this time. I didn't get angry. I just smiled. Because now I knew something they didn't. They had stolen the idea. But they had no idea how to actually build it. I started reaching out. Quietly. Carefully. To people Harold's company had ignored. Small bakery owners. Local gyms. Family-run shops. Independent consultants. I asked if I could interview them for research. Most said yes. And when I asked what they needed most from a branding agency, the answers were always the same. Someone who listens. Someone who understands our budget. Someone who doesn't treat us like we're too small to matter. I took notes on everything. Their pain points. Their dreams. Their frustrations with big agencies that charged thousands and delivered generic templates. This wasn't just research anymore. It was a roadmap. I was building a client base before I even had a business. And none of them had ever heard of Harold Drake. But they were about to hear about me. I just needed the right moment. And a little more preparation. So I kept gathering names. Kept building trust. Kept planting seeds. Patiently. Strategically. Like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. I met Professor Madeline Snow at a coffee shop downtown. She had been my business strategy professor in grad school, the one who always told me I thought too small. When I told her what happened with Harold, she just shook her head. Nora, you're still asking for permission, she said, stirring her tea. You pitched your idea to a man who was never going to say yes. Not because it was bad. Because if he said yes, he would have to share credit. She leaned forward. You don't need his permission. You don't need his company. You need courage and a plan. I told her I didn't have funding. She asked if I had clients. I told her I had interviews. Conversations. Interest. She smiled. That's better than funding. That's proof. Stop waiting for someone to hand you an opportunity. Build it yourself. I left that coffee shop feeling different. Lighter. Like I had been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. Permission. I had been waiting for permission my whole career. But Madeline was right. I didn't need it. I just needed to start. The announcement came during a Monday morning all-staff meeting. Tessa Monroe was being promoted to senior strategist for her innovative contributions to new business development initiatives. Everyone clapped. Harold beamed like a proud parent. I sat in the back, watching, saying nothing. After the meeting, HR called me in. They needed me to sign an updated NDA. Confidentiality agreement. Standard procedure, they said. I read it carefully. It covered all internal projects, concepts, and strategic initiatives developed during employment. They wanted to make sure I couldn't talk about anything we worked on. I signed it. But not before I checked the timestamps on every file I had backed up. Every draft was dated months before Tessa's promotion. Every concept was documented in my personal notes with metadata proving I created it. The NDA protected their secrets. But my backups protected the truth. I walked out of that office calm and quiet. They thought they had locked me down. They had no idea I was already planning my exit. Morris Hale ran a small bakery 3 blocks from my apartment. I had been going there for years. One evening, I asked if he had ever worked with a branding agency. He laughed bitterly. Tried once. They charged me $4,000 for a logo I could have gotten on Fiverr. Never saw results. I asked if he would let me try something. No charge. Just a test. He shrugged. What do I have to lose? I spent 2 weeks working with him. New logo. Social media strategy. Email campaigns targeted at his neighborhood. Simple, clean, authentic. 3 weeks later, his weekend sales had doubled. He was getting catering orders. People were tagging his bakery on Instagram. Morris looked at me like I had performed magic. How much do I owe you? He asked. Nothing, I said. Just tell people where you got the help. That was my proof. Not a pitch deck. Not a business plan. Real results. From a real client. Who trusted me because I listened. This was the spark. And I was ready to turn it into a fire. I typed my resignation letter on a Tuesday night. 2 sentences. Professional. Clean. I submitted it Wednesday morning. Harold called me into his office an hour later, grinning like he had just won something. So you're finally giving up, he said, leaning back in his chair. Some people just aren't built for this industry, Nora. No shame in that. I looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man who had laughed at me. Stolen from me. Underestimated me. And I smiled. One day, Harold, you're going to regret giving me free time. He laughed. Loud. Like it was the funniest thing he had ever heard. Good luck out there, he said, waving me away. I walked out of that office, packed my desk in 10 minutes, and left the building without saying goodbye to anyone. Except Owen. I stopped by his desk and whispered, "Thank you." He just nodded. 2 weeks later, I was working full-time on my own. No safety net. No backup plan. Just me, a laptop, and a list of people who believed in something Harold never understood. Potential. Layla Brooks was a freelance graphic designer I found through a mutual contact. Talented, hungry, tired of working for agencies that underpaid and overpromised. When I told her what I was building, she didn't hesitate. I'm in. We worked out of my garage. 2 folding tables. 1 whiteboard. A coffee maker that barely worked. But we had something those big agencies didn't. Belief. And clients started coming. Slowly at first. Morris referred a friend who owned a bookstore. The bookstore owner referred a yoga studio. The yoga studio referred a coffee roaster. Word of mouth. 1 conversation at a time. We weren't scaling fast. But we were building trust. And every single client said the same thing when they signed on. You actually listen. That was our entire business model. Listen. Deliver. Repeat. No corporate jargon. No overpriced packages. Just real people helping real businesses grow. By month 3, we had 12 clients. Small budgets. But real relationships. And something else. A reputation. People were starting to talk. And one of those people? Someone who used to work with Harold's agency. We needed a name. Something simple. Something that said exactly what we were. Layla suggested Foundation. I loved it immediately. Not flashy. Not clever. Just solid. We built a website in 1 weekend. Clean design. Client testimonials. A pricing structure that didn't require a mortgage. Everything Harold's agency wasn't. I studied every mistake they made. Overpriced packages. Slow responses. Generic templates. Cookie-cutter solutions. And I did the opposite. Custom work. Fast replies. Affordable pricing. Personal attention. We weren't trying to compete with the big agencies. We were serving the people they ignored. And those people? They were everywhere. Within 2 months, Foundation had a waiting list. We hired another designer. Then a copywriter. Then a social media coordinator. Still small. Still scrappy. But growing. And one afternoon, I got an email from a business owner I didn't recognize. Subject line, leaving Drake Marketing. Found you instead. I opened it and smiled. It was starting. The exodus I knew was coming. Because people don't leave good agencies. They leave agencies that stopped caring. 3 clients left Harold's firm in 1 month. All of them came to me. I didn't poach them. Didn't reach out. They found me. And when I asked why they left, they all said the same thing. They stopped listening. One of them, a woman who ran a local fitness studio, told me she had been begging Harold's team for months to adjust her messaging. They kept ignoring her. You answered my first email in 20 minutes, she said. They took 3 days. That told me everything. Another client, a small law firm, said they felt like a number. With you, I feel like a partner. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't competing with Harold. I was solving a problem he created. Every ignored email, Every delayed response. Every generic template. He had built a machine that treated people like transactions. I was building something that treated people like people. And in business, that's everything. By the end of that month, Foundation had 20 clients. Harold's agency had lost 8. And I hadn't spent a single dollar on advertising. I didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. Dean Carver from HR called me out of nowhere. We had been friendly when I worked there, but I hadn't heard from him since I left. Nora, he said quietly, something's collapsing here. I can't say much, but people are scrambling. Clients are leaving. And they don't know why. I didn't ask for details. I just listened. Whatever you're doing, Dean continued, it's working. And they're starting to panic. That night, I got a text from Harold. Just one line. Enjoy freelancing. I stared at that message for a long time. He still thought I was small. Still thought I was beneath him. Still thought I was playing in the minor leagues while he ran the empire. He had no idea. I wasn't freelancing. I was building. And while he was busy mocking me, I was quietly taking everything he took for granted. Clients. Trust. Reputation. I didn't reply to his text. I didn't need to. My work was already answering for me, louder than words ever could. The email came from Evelyn Clark, the CEO. Subject line, lunch. She wanted to meet. Talk about opportunities. I knew what this was. They wanted me back. I met her at an upscale restaurant downtown. She ordered wine. Talked about how much the company missed my organizational skills. How they had an opening for a junior strategist position. How I could come back and be part of the team again. I listened. Smiled politely. Let her finish. Then I said, Evelyn, I appreciate the offer. But I'm not looking to be part of a team. I'm building my own. Her smile faltered. Nora, you have to understand. Starting a business is risky. We're offering stability. I don't want stability, I said. I want growth. And I'm getting it. She tried again. Mentioned benefits. Health insurance. A title. I stood up. I laughed because I was ignored. Now you want me back because I'm succeeding. That tells me everything I need to know. I walked out. She didn't follow. And I never looked back. They still didn't get it. I wasn't their solution. I was their competition. The review appeared on a business forum I didn't even know existed. A client had written a detailed comparison between Drake Marketing and Foundation. Point by point. Response time. Creativity. Value. Personal attention. Results. Foundation won in every single category. The post went viral in local business circles. People started sharing it. Commenting. Asking how to work with us. I saw it the same day Harold did. I know because he called me. First time in months. You're poaching my clients, he said. His voice was tight. Angry. I'm not poaching anyone, I replied calmly. They're choosing to leave. There's a difference. This is unethical, he snapped. No, Harold. This is business. You taught me that. I hung up. And for the first time since that conference room, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. Not over him. Over my own life. Over my own future. Over the narrative that said I wasn't good enough. I was good enough. I was better. And the world was starting to see it. That review stayed at the top of the forum for 2 weeks. And every day, my inbox filled with new inquiries. Harold's agency? Hemorrhaging clients. Quietly. Desperately. Irreversibly. Felix Porter reached out through LinkedIn. He was an investor who specialized in small business solutions. He had read about Foundation. Wanted to talk. We met at a coffee shop. He didn't waste time. I like what you're doing, he said. You're solving a real problem. I want to fund your growth. I asked what he wanted in return. Partnership, he said. Not control. I don't want to run your company. I want to help you scale it. We talked for 2 hours. He understood the vision. Believed in the model. Wasn't trying to change what made us different. By the end of that meeting, I had funding. Real funding. Enough to hire a full team. Open an office. Build the platform I had pitched a year ago in that conference room. The platform Harold laughed at. The one he said would never work. I was about to prove him wrong. Not by telling him. By showing the entire industry. And this time, I wasn't asking for permission. I was taking what I earned. One strategic move at a time. I launched a free webinar. Branding for small businesses, What the big agencies won't tell you. I promoted it through local business groups, social media, word of mouth. I expected maybe 50 people to sign up. 300 registered. The webinar was simple, honest, practical. I talked about what small businesses actually need, how to avoid overpriced agencies, how to build a brand without going broke. I didn't mention Harold's company by name. I didn't have to. Everyone knew. The webinar went viral. People shared it, recorded it, quoted it. Within a week, 15 of Harold's clients reached out to me. They didn't leave angry. They left calmly, professionally, with clear reasons. We need someone who understands us. We're looking for a better fit. We're exploring other options. It was legal. It was ethical. It was just business. And Harold couldn't do a single thing about it, except watch and panic. Because for the first time in his career, he wasn't the one in control. The clients were. And they were choosing me. Harold sent a cease and desist letter, accused me of stealing proprietary information, using company trade secrets, violating my NDA. I forwarded it to my lawyer. She laughed. He has no case, she said. But let's end this quickly. I sent him a response. Attached were timestamped files of every concept, every draft, every version of my original presentation. All dated months before I left his company. All created on my personal devices. All backed up with metadata proving I owned the work. His lawyer dropped the case within 48 hours. But the damage was done. The board started asking questions. Why was Harold accusing a former employee of theft? Why was he losing clients? Why was the company struggling while a startup thrived? An internal investigation began. Not because I asked for it. Because the board finally saw what I had seen a year ago. Harold wasn't a leader. He was a liability. And the company he built on stolen ideas and stolen credit was crumbling under the weight of its own arrogance. I didn't celebrate. I just kept working. Because revenge isn't loud. It's results. Paul Renner, a senior board member, called me. He wanted to meet. Privately. No lawyers. No pressure. Just a conversation. We met at his office. He didn't waste time. We're restructuring, he said. And we'd like your input on how to fix what's broken. I asked why he was asking me. Because you built something in a year that we couldn't sustain in 10. That says something. He wanted to know what went wrong. I told him the truth. You stopped listening to your clients. You hired people who cared more about titles than results. And you let Harold run the company like a kingdom instead of a business. Paul nodded slowly. What would you do differently? I didn't hold back. I told him everything. Simplify pricing. Empower teams. Focus on relationships, not revenue. Treat small businesses like they matter. He took notes. Asked follow-up questions. And at the end, he said something I didn't expect. Would you consider consulting for us? I paused. Only if Harold isn't involved. Paul smiled. He won't be. That was the moment I knew. Harold was done. Not because I destroyed him. Because he destroyed himself. And I was just the mirror that showed everyone what he really was. Harold found out about the meeting. I don't know how. But he knew. He called me, furious. You're trying to take my job. No, I said calmly. I'm building my own. You lost yours on your own. I made you, he snapped. You were nothing before I hired you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Harold, you didn't make me. You underestimated me. And that was your biggest mistake. He hung up. 2 weeks later, the announcement came. Harold Drake was stepping down. Effective immediately. Evelyn Clark was resigning. The agency was restructuring under new leadership. Paul Renner personally called to thank me for my consultation. You helped us see what we couldn't see, he said. I didn't gloat. Didn't post about it. Didn't tell anyone. I just went back to work. Because the loudest victory isn't the one you shout about. It's the one that speaks for itself. And mine was deafening. Harold was gone. The agency was rebuilding. And me? I was just getting started. Harold reached out one last time. Not through lawyers. Not through colleagues. Directly. An email. Subject line, can we talk? We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. He looked different. Older. Tired. Smaller somehow. I need a job, he said. No preamble. No apology. Just desperation. I stared at him. The man who laughed at me. Stole from me. Humiliated me. And now he was asking me for help. Why would I hire you? I asked. Because I know the industry. I have experience. I can help you grow. I shook my head. Harold, I don't need your experience. I built this company by doing the opposite of everything you taught me. He looked down. Nora, please. I have nowhere else to go. I stood up, looked at him one last time, and said the words I had been waiting a year to say. I don't rebuild what was broken, Harold. I build what comes next. Then I walked out, left him sitting there, alone, with nothing but the consequences of his own choices. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt free. Foundation kept growing. We moved into a real office, hired a team of 20, expanded into 3 cities. And every single day, I thought about that conference room. The laughter. The humiliation. The moment I decided I was done asking for permission, I started a mentorship program for young professionals who felt overlooked, underestimated, ignored. I taught them what Madeline taught me. You don't need permission to build something real. You don't need validation from people who don't see your value. You just need courage, and a plan, and the willingness to prove them wrong. Not with words, with work. One of my ments asked me once, how do you deal with people who don't believe in you? I smiled. You stop trying to convince them, and you start building something so undeniable, they have no choice but to see it. That's what I did. That's what I teach. Because the world is full of Harolds, but it's also full of Noras. People who were told no, who were laughed at, who were underestimated, and who built empires anyway. A year later, I was invited to speak at a business conference, the same one Harold used to attend every year. I stood on that stage, looking out at hundreds of people, and told my story. Not for revenge, not for validation, but because someone in that audience needed to hear it. Someone was sitting in a cubicle right now, being told their ideas weren't good enough. Someone was being laughed at, ignored, underestimated, and I wanted them to know. The loudest people in the room rarely build the future. They're too busy talking. The quiet ones? They're already building. They're gathering data, making plans, planting seeds. And one day, when no one's paying attention, they'll grow something so powerful, so undeniable, that the world has no choice but to notice. That's what I did. And that's what you can do too. Not by shouting, not by fighting, by building, quietly, strategically, relentlessly, until the work speaks louder than anything they ever said about you. And when they finally see what you built, you won't need to say a word, because by then, they'll already know, you were always good enough. They just weren't paying attention.